Sometimes it feels safer to live in a state of limbo than it does to make a decision and have to live with the consequences. You will learn more by making a decision and learning from that decision than you ever will from sitting in limbo. Well, hey friends, welcome back to the podcast. We're going to talk today about making decisions in your business. And the truth is this probably could apply to like life in general. Also, my glasses are dirty, so sorry if you're watching me on YouTube right now, but I literally just started this podcast and I'm like, I have a big fingerprint on the middle of my eyeball and I want to be able to see my notes because this is important. So I want to know, first of all, if you're watching on YouTube, you can put it in the chat below. How many of you that are listening, you struggle with decision making? And I have some real opinions as to why sometimes, especially females in business, struggle with decision making. But what I'm hoping that you're going to walk away from this podcast with is a little bit of like an aha moment of why you're not making decisions, and then some concrete meat and potato type of ideas on how you can force yourself to make ideas or to make decisions. Because the truth is, when you're stuck in between decision making, it's like this limbo that nobody enjoys. And Jason and I nicknamed this several years ago. In fact, I have a podcast on this somewhere. I'd have to go back and look at what number it was, but on closing the loop, because I realized that when I had a bunch of things in my brain that I had not made a decision on, that the more things in my brain that I needed to make a decision on, the more my stress level went up. And what we figured out is that if I would just like talk through some things with Jason, he would help me close the loops. I'm using that in parentheses, and help me come to some decisions. It was like the stress level would go way down. But the more unanswered things I have in my brain, the higher the stress level is going up. And I'm talking, by the way, right now in like mostly in business, but it can also be personal things like, do we want to take a family vacation to here or there? Do we want RA to do soccer or no? Do you know what I mean? Just like when things like that, and we're in limbo, it makes me very anxious. And I'm guessing that a lot of you get anxious off the same thing. Okay. And so indecision really does increase anxiety in most people. It increases your cortisol levels, which means that when your cortisol levels are high, it's harder to lose weight, especially harder to lose belly fat. It packs on belly fat. Like the high cortisol levels, you really want to get away from. Be out walking so you can decrease those. But indecision really does create a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, and what a lot of times people think is, I don't want to make a decision because I don't know. But what they don't realize is that indecision is like, it's messing them up on the inside, mentally, physically, other ways. Okay. So I think that there's a couple reasons why I think people struggle with decision making and also continue to not make a decision. Okay. If you're in one of my coaching groups, you've perhaps heard me talk about this before, but I have a theory that all of our life, especially if you're in my age bracket, so let's just say the 40 to 60 age bracket. As children, most of us were raised in, not all of us, but a lot of us were raised in no nonsense households where you did what your parents, told you to do. You didn't question it. You didn't talk back. You were expected to go by this set of rules, and therefore you did. And so that was at home. And then you'd go to school and you'd have to raise your hand to use the restroom, raise your hand to ask a question, do every single thing that you're expected to do at school all day long with zero ability to make any decisions for yourself. So you don't get to make any decisions for yourself while you're at home. Mom, can I, get up from the table? I'm full. You're not full. I am full. No, you're not. Finish your plate. How many of you can relate to that? Go to the bathroom before we get on the road trip. No, I don't need to go to the bathroom. Yes, you do. Go in there and go to the bathroom. Like it's interesting. If you've been raised in an environment where you were unallowed to make decisions, both in education, if you were in a public education system, and at home, if you were in a household where that was the expectation and there was very little dialogue and you got to do very little decision making. What's interesting then is we get out into the real world and we have this call in our life. We have this desire to do a business. We have this rub with working a traditional 9 to 5. We want to be, our own business owner. We want to be a coach or whatever. And then we've got all these decisions around leaving corporate America, around starting a business, on what's the business going to be called and what are we going to charge for it and what's it going to look like. And now we're in this environment where every decision is up to us. And we wonder why we get stuck and we freeze and we can't make decisions. Well, look at your background. You were never allowed to make decisions on anything. And then suddenly you come into entrepreneurship and you're expected to make decisions on everything. This is where that term decision fatigue comes from, because so often as an entrepreneur, it's just like one decision after another all day long. And so that's one of the reasons I think a lot of entrepreneurs, women in particular, have a difficult time with decision making. Another reason I think that often people don't want to make decisions, and again, this is going mostly to business when I talk about this, is because we think if I just know a little bit more, then I can decide. If I just pray a little bit longer, then I can decide. If I just have a little bit more assurance that everything's going to work out, then I'll make a decision. If I just XYZ, you fill in the blank, then I'll decide. Not realizing that a lot of times you're never going to be surer than you are today. Is surer a word? Surer than you are today. You're never going to get 100%, exact, assurance that things are going to work out. You're never going to know, it's never actually going to happen. And so you're thinking, if I just know a little more, I'll be able to do better, which is actually not actually the truth when it comes to being an entrepreneur. You will learn more by making a decision and learning from that decision than you ever will from sitting in limbo. Okay. Another reason that people often will not make a decision, because that feels safer to some people than making a decision in their life or their business and then having to live with the consequences. Can I say that again? Sometimes it feels safer to live in a state of limbo than it does to make a decision and have to live with the consequences. Should I start a business or not start a business? And then you're in limbo. And so then you're basically not starting a business, but you'd rather almost do that than start the business and find out if you had it in you or not. Do I launch a coaching program? Do I not launch a coaching program? And so a lot of times you just sit in that indecision, which means you're not launching, by the way, because that's easier than putting your coaching program out into the world and, perhaps having nobody sign up, which is going to feel awful, or perhaps having everybody sign up and then you have to actually rise to the occasion, which also could feel awful. So I think those are reasons why a lot of times people don't want to make decisions, or perhaps you are somebody who has made some really bad decisions in the past. Maybe you've had a business that's flopped. Maybe you had to declare bankruptcy at some point. Maybe your marriage failed and you had to get a divorce. Maybe you lost your home. Maybe you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You had a partnership and that wound up terrible. There's so many things that can go wrong in a business. Also, there's so many things that can go right, by the way. But if you're someone who has made bad decisions in the past, sometimes it becomes hard for you to make decisions in the present because, again, you're thinking, I don't want to repeat what I did, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So if I just know more, I won't repeat that. If I just figure out a little bit more, I won't repeat that. If I just study a little more, watch a little bit more, take another program, get another coach, dance around and stand on my head 10 more times, then I can make decisions that surely are not going to end up like they did 5 years, 10 years ago, whatever. Can anybody relate to that? Will you tell me in the comments on YouTube if you can, just so I know who I'm talking to here? If you've made bad decisions in the past, please forgive yourself and get on with it. And just know that just because you've decided poorly in the past, first of all, you made the best decision at that point with the information you had then. If put in the same exact position today, you would probably make a different decision based on the information you have today. Am I right? I'm right. Okay. Last thing I want to talk about is there are some times that precious women of God do not want to make a decision about what to do, what not to do in business, what to price something, what not to price something, and they'll use the excuse of, I'm just going to pray. I'm just going to keep praying. I'm just waiting to hear from God. just waiting for God to give me some direction. And the truth is that sometimes we can use that as an excuse. Now, sometimes that's 100% appropriate, and that's 100% accurate, and that's exactly what you need to be doing. Other times we use, I'm just waiting for God to tell me, as an excuse because we are still in prayer mode. And the Bible literally says that faith without works is dead, meaning you can be in prayer mode all you want, but sometimes you have to get into works mode because the two of them, they have to be done in combination. Just praying about it alone, there has to be some motion with the prayer. There has to be some intention, some follow through, some doing something. Listen, you serve and I serve a very good God who can 100%, I assure to you, if you have made the wrong decision and you are going down the wrong path, the Lord can surely shift you. Think of it, how many times you avoided failure, wrong relationships, bad decisions in the past. You were headed down one way and then suddenly you had this inkling to go home on a different route. Suddenly you had this thought that this isn't the right one. Suddenly something happened. You lost your corporate job and now you have to shift. And this, like, the Lord has been good to each of us already. And the Lord has corrected most of our paths already in some way or another. You know, the Bible says that a man picks his steps, but this, what's it say? Let's see, there's a couple, I'm mixing two scriptures there. The steps of a godly man are ordered of the Lord. Is that what this says? Something along that. So please just rest assured that if you are waiting on God, but you know that you're using that as an excuse, if you make a decision, and I'll give you an audacious prayer to pray. You can pray, and this is biblical, this is in the Bible. You can pray, Lord, this is what I'm deciding right now. If this is wrong, would you close doors so tight, Lord, that no man can open them? And Lord, if this is the right decision, will you open doors so wide that no man can shut them? That's an audacious, brave prayer. And I'm telling you, if you will just pray that and make a decision, the Lord's going with you either way. He's going with you either way. But sometimes it's going to require you stepping out in faith, going to one side or another of a decision, and then the Lord is able to alter that. Okay, so here's a couple of things for those of you who are stuck in indecision right now that I want to just leave you with, okay? Make sure the excuse that you're giving is the accurate reason as to why you're not making a decision, okay? That's number one. Number two, give yourself a deadline. Hold your own feet to the fire. You know what? I haven't been wanting to decide on the name for my new coaching program. I can't decide if I should do this or this or this. I just need to ask 10 more friends and get their, ideas, et cetera. Listen, at some point, you've got to hold your own feet to the fire and you just have to make a decision. And the truth is, you're never going to be sure that you're 100% going to love it, 100% going to be okay with it, but you're not picking a marriage partner. You're picking a name for your business. I mean, if you hate it down the road, you can surely change it, right? But if you are going to be an entrepreneur, and hear me when I say this, friends, your entire rest of your career is going to be making decisions. It really is. And if you are somebody who you struggle with decision-making, you have got to teach yourself how to be better. You have got to get in the habit of making decisions. You've got to start trusting your gut. You've got to start praying and doing. You've got to shift that, because otherwise being an entrepreneur is going to be a very difficult thing for you, because that's all we do all day long is make decisions. Remember that this is not like for life. Some of the decisions you're making, if you will think about it this way, like, I'm just making a decision for this season. Like, I'm not having to decide on the cost of my program. And that's like the only option I have forever and ever and ever. Amen. Like, I can decide today to launch my first, one-on-one consulting 30 minutes for $297 for 30 minutes. But I don't have to do that forever. It's just for this season. And then if I don't like it, I can raise it. I can lower it. I can whatever. That would be so helpful for some of you to keep in mind. Just, what do I need to decide on today? What is appropriate for the decision in this season? It's not necessarily, doesn't have to be forever, but it has to be for right now. And for some of you, if you would just, instead of looking at like 10 miles out, if you would maybe just look like 10 steps out, that would be helpful, because you get wound up into this spiral of non-decision making and being frozen and you can't decide. When you're looking so far out and you're borrowing tomorrow's trouble today, you're worrying about what could happen tomorrow. today. And so if some of you would quit looking so far down the road and just literally look 10 steps in front of you, it would be so helpful. It would be so helpful. All right. Was this helpful for you guys? Would you let me know? I get in seasons where it's hard for me to decide on things too. I do. And I have learned after owning my own business for 23 years is that when I am in that spiral of non-decision, everybody around me pays for it. My family pays for it because I'm antsy. I'm wired tight. I bark at them a little more than I should. Are they losing out financially sometimes because mom cannot make a decision? Probably. I know my team pays for my indecision. If I was to say, if we have two things that we're trying to decide between launching, and they're going to be good with either one of them, right? Because they're my team. They're here to serve all of our clients. They just need me to make a decision. And it's not making a decision that they're like, okay, they're starting to feel, I don't know, has Jen lost her confidence? Has Jen lost her edge? Why isn't she making a decision? So people pay in addition to you paying the cost for not making a decision. Listen, friends, the only way you're going to know if the decision was right or wrong is if to make it and then let the chips lie where they may. I hope that this was helpful. Okay. If you are still trying to figure out and make a decision on what type of coaching you should do, like should you do one-on-one coaching? Should you do group coaching? Should you launch a course? You can go to jenniferallwood.com/quiz. It's just a free little quiz there. It only takes a few minutes, but that'll help give you some confidence in your decision-making in terms of what type of coach you could be. So hope that was helpful. It's jenniferallwood.com/quiz. Bless you all. Decide something today. Close those loops. I'm rooting for you. Bye-bye.